Good morning, and once again I'm back at War Games Workshop for a BoltAction tournament run by the Outriders MK. Another one of these again, it seems, but today I'm having a little bit of fun. So we are back on the double platoon. We have done this a couple of times before. So we've got 1,000 points with 2 platoons and an order dice limit of 16, which is very interesting because we usually play at 12, which is a bit limiting, so that limit has been raised quite a lot. And I thought, well, if I've got 16 order dice and I can take loads of choices because I've got 2 platoons, why not just go for the full Soviet Horde? Because I've been playing Soviet Union for 2 years, I haven't done the Soviet Horde yet. And then I realised there's actually other things that I can be doing with the double platoon. I could double up on a howitzer. I have 2 medium howitzers because the indirect fire, they can shoot over the top of the infantry, and that would be useful. And I can take a mortar and a light mortar. I can take both of my mortars. And why not, just for the extra support, I can take double sniper. So I've got double howitzer, double mortar, double sniper, and a whole bundle of infantry as well. And I was kind of running out of points at this point. I was running out of points at this stage of building the list, but I did manage to squeeze in a Katyusha as well, just because that's fun. Yeah, I'm sure I'm showing you some B-roll of the list. The exact units don't matter. It's mostly just regular rifle squads, regular submachine gun squads, and that kind of thing. And both of my lieutenants ended up being single model, inexperienced, 35-point affairs, just to squeeze out the extra points for other things. But you might be able to see people moving around inside there, setting up the tables. I should probably go and help, so let's do that. So I had already decided that today would be a fun series of games with a silly list, and I wasn't going to try too hard to be hyper competitive. Then I got paired in my first game against one of the players in our group who is one of the more experienced competitive tournament players. So I guess it's a good job that I had decided to lose in advance. The mission had 5 objectives, and we each started in opposite quarters. However, I lost the choice of table quarter, so I didn't get the nice long sight lines that run kind of bottom left to top right in this picture. Instead, we fought across them, and so that's going to leave me at the mercy of my spotters and indirect fire. That said, I did get a couple of early hits, not big ones, but hits for sure. My opponent also got in a few early hits, landing a 6 and wiping out one of my howitzers, and then in the next turn doing exactly the same to my Katyusha as well. My free rifles charged all the way up to the building in the middle of the board and sat on ambush for most of the game waiting for someone to charge them, which never happened. At this point I have to interrupt myself to talk about outflanking, which is a rule in BoltAction that I've never used before. I know, right? I've been playing for 2 years and never used what some consider to be a core game mechanic. Well, because of this, I didn't really know how to use it, and I decided that a sniper and a mortar might be good options. They can jump in once my other support weapons have kind of suffered a bit and refresh the firepower. That was a bad plan. What my opponent did was use several assault units in outflank who arrived, stormed the objectives from the sides of the board, and yeah, that's much more effective than my mortar and my sniper, while they just appeared where they should have started the game and only had 2 turns worth of shooting because they'd spent most of the game off the board. With my support weapons not really handing out the punishment they should have done, my infantry bundled up and contested as many objectives as I could, including my free rifles charging some objective grabbers and contesting the middle. But really, it's a silly list versus a competitive list, and it was never really going to amount to much. For my second game, a rematch against my top table opponent from last month, and this time we have kind of the opposite problem. My opponent, playing the Japanese, relies on bundling up infantry, but my HE, especially that Katyusha, forces them to spread out. And I have enough indirect fire weapons that I can shoot at basically the entire table with at least 1 weapon at any given moment. And because of that, my opponents spread out, and I was able to pick off the small veteran squads as they appeared fairly easily. And whilst I was rolling fairly poorly overall, when their tanks showed up, I suddenly rolled the best rolls ever and delayed both of them.
stunning one for long enough that it didn't change the outcome of the game, and immobilizing and then destroying the other. Whilst I think my opponent did still have some teeth left in this game, they were really psyched out by the Katyusha. By spreading out just too much, their small squads got picked off and their big squads got surrounded. And when I did finally get a hit with the Katyusha after several turns of trying, and even then they only knocked out half of a squad, it was pretty much the last squad that my opponent had to deal with, and it was the last straw and my opponent conceded. My artillery, strangely, hadn't done an awful lot except for tricking my opponent into spreading out, which let my infantry deal with the enemy units one at a time. Psychological warfare, I guess. My final game was against another competitive player, with Gurkha Paras, yes, really. And, problem for me, 4 armoured vehicles, doubling up on Chappies and Humbers. My list, in theory, does very well versus infantry when it decides to hit, but against vehicles, I am entirely reliant on rolling 6s to hit those indirect shots to land on the top armour, and I didn't manage that almost the entire day, let alone in this game. Even when I targeted this little area at the back with my Katyusha with 4 clustered targets on 3 separate turns, for at least 10 dice rolls, plus a howitzer and a mortar adding 3 or 4 shots, only one of those landed, which did thankfully take out one of the Humbers, but it just wasn't enough. On the left, where most of their forces push up, I quickly ran out of everything and anything. I just couldn't deal with that armour because I had such limited anti-tank weapons. By the end of the game, I managed to contest quite a few objectives, but I didn't actually hold any of them, not even the one I started on. So all told, this fun, slightly memey list with about as much HE Indirect as I could squeeze in did middle of the pack, 7th out of 14 players. It was fun, if a little frustrating to play, although it's also frustrating to play against. I have always considered that the best lists in BoltAction are much better balanced, but it can be a lot of fun to max out on a particular thing every now and again, and that's what I did today. I did win a prize in the form of the M8 Greyhound, which is interesting for my American force because this will supersede my 3D printed one. But that will come in another video. For today, I remind you to go and play games if you can, and I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you very much for watching.